but let's bring Adam on. Adam, it is so exciting to welcome you to Portal to Ascension. I'm Joan of Angels. I should introduce myself. I love your work, and I'm just honored to bring you
Beautiful.
here.
Thank you so much, Joan. Thank you for reading my bio
Oh
and
my God. And you're
welcoming
in a
me in with your
spaceship.
big heart and your big energy. I feel you, and just thank you. Awesome. That
Okay.
was so rocking with Kiyoshi too, man. I just want to
Oh my
give the
God, right? It's
cat
such
some
high
props.
vibes at this moment. But
Ah,
I'm
so
really,
good.
okay, I want you to know something. When I have my visions and I find myself in a ship, and
Hmm.
in the center of the ship, it happens to look just like where you are. So
Yeah,
I'm going to hop on board with you while you're doing your presentation.
it sounds great. I've got some extra seats back here. We've got the planetary dashboard up so that we can track impact projects around the planet. Just setting the template for
Oh
the
my
peace
God,
room
I'm
of the
coming on
future
board. And I
slash
think,
planetary coordination impact room.
You bring us all there, Adam. I'm so glad that you're doing this, and you have brought us to that place that Kiyoshi just did too. When I've been with you and some of the stuff that you do with your music, Pete, that wasn't even, I don't even think that was in your bio, but
it wasn't.
Joan, when we do these introductions, sometimes we read bio, sometimes we don't. But Adam, your bio has to be read because you have
Thank you.
accomplished so much, and it doesn't just flow off our lips, all these accomplishments. So thank you for joining, and I'm going to jump off so you can start your presentation too. I love you, Joan.
Thank you,
Love
Michelle.
you,
So good to
Adam.
see you. Thank you.
Adam, go for it. Take us to the promised land, love.
Well, I thought you guys were going to be interviewing me, but since that's not the case, I guess I'll just riff and take you guys on a little bit of a journey through what's been real and present and up for me in my life lately, and a lot of the work that I've been doing. We're really in a time right now where the big question mark is, can we claim our sovereignty? Can we recognize and acknowledge who we are and what we're here for, and that the power of creation lies within the power of our choice? I had a conversation the other night with someone who had met a lot of people that had had different kinds of extraterrestrial experiences, seen starships, and in themselves really, really deeply wanted to have more of these experiences. And they asked me, what is it, Adam Apollo? What is it that is keeping the starships from coming down? Like, what is it that is the major transition point that we need to cross in order to become a galactic civilization, in order to become a next level culture? For those of you that know my work, you know that a lot of times I speak on and focus on the technological aspects of the transition, freeing and unleashing localized energy systems around the planet, unlocking replication systems, being able to develop the materials and metals and objects that we need to create any kind of object without raping them out of the earth. Gravitational control, being able to understand that gravity and space-time itself is a tangible, discrete structure. And once we learn how to interact with gravity in the right ways, then superluminal travel is inevitable. We can travel to other planets across the galaxy faster than light, instantaneously, and allow the depressurization of population on planet Earth. Yet, I don't as often speak about the deeper philosophical content that underlies making those technological transitions, except for one, which is open source. The idea that if we open and share our gifts, our frameworks, our foundational tools and technology, our templates and our systems with each other in an open way, then suddenly we have no more need for competition. Everyone who up levels everybody else. And that in its essence is a philosophical approach to this galactic transition that we're coming into. But there's an essential piece underlying that. And the essential piece is sovereignty. It's really about us claiming our power of choice, claiming who we are, realizing that no one else should ever have the power over our bodies, our emotions, or our minds. That we can give of ourselves, we can surrender to others' will when we choose to do so, when it serves us. And yet the fundamental power of will, the power of choice itself, is something that is essential to the core of our soul and who we actually are. And I think that in this transition that we're facing right now on the planet, that's the test. The big test from a lot of our star nation looking down at the earth going, okay, teenage kids, humanity, you want to take the next level. What are you going to do to get there? What are you going to do to show that you're ready to get there? And the answer comes right in the midst of the massive karmic, samskaric, and pressure surfacing of the cooker of fear around doubt and our own health and our own beings and our own abilities and capacity to move forward in our lives. And we're challenged to recognize, are we going to stand for the power of our own choice? Are we going to stand for the responsibility that belongs to us to take care of our world, to take care of each other, to take care of all life? Are we going to stand for truth that we can experience directly, that we can validate? That's not just another news story blasted in our face, but that which is our direct truth and experience of living. If we can embrace and embody the clarity of this sovereignty within us, the clarity of the choices and the power of those choices that can enable us to actually make decisions that are good for all life and ourselves, then we are establishing the fundamental presence necessary to become a galactic civilization. In ages past, there have been many visitors from many worlds that have come to this planet. In some of my presentations, I talk about and show some of the incredible structures built around the planet and the high levels of technology necessary to do those. And I reveal that behind many of the root cultures across Earth, there are extraterrestrial influences. There are the deep source relationships with star nations and star beings that birthed cultures, that gave rise to entire lineages of people and ways of being and magic and belief systems and consciousness that still persist to this day. And yet we've lost those historical links. We've lost those memories, those connections, which make our relationship to our friends out there among the galaxy not so much human and alien, other, different, non-understandable, but make our relationship with them family. Because we are actually part of one living family of conscious species evolving and progressing across planets, across star systems, finding our way into deeper awareness of who we are, where we came from, and what we are truly here to do. And that key of reestablishing our connection with Star Nation as family and not as bridging some gap with contact to the others, even the word extraterrestrial, suggests this other world, this other way. And yet so much of us terrestrial beings here on this planet are actually from other worlds. And in the ages past, what has happened on many occasions is that star beings came down, they brought down ships, they brought down technology, they interacted with humans, and humanity inevitably worshipped them as gods and goddesses. And this worship of gods and goddesses, placing the other on the pedestal and treating them as though you're lesser than them and serving and worshiping and offering and etc., created an imbalance in the field of consciousness. It wasn't what is intended by the rest of this galactic community, or so they've told me. And they realized that they couldn't just keep going like that. Like they couldn't just go along with humanity becoming part of the galactic civilization while believing that there's this gap, that they're lesser than. And so the evolution of consciousness and humanity on the planet has needed to go through its many, many stages of growth to come to a place and a time where we are prepared, though adolescent as we may be on a galactic scale, to take responsibility for our own planet, for our own people, for our own technological growth and evolution, to be humble enough to listen to the guidance of others and pay attention to the geometric, mathematical magic laid into crop circles across the earth, to be humble enough to come before Star Nation and recognize that, yeah, we've not figured it out yet. We do not know how to steward and manage our planet in a way that is harmonious and peaceful and supportive to all life. But you lose, you learn. You fail, you learn. You fall, you learn. You give away your sovereignty, you learn. We learn, we grow, we change. And if there's something that I know about humanity that defines us in this powerfully distinctive way compared to many of the other species that I've encountered across the galaxy, it is that we have the capacity to change. We can change like lightning. We can shift, we can move our emotions, our beings. We can shift, we can change. We can change. And we have to claim that change. We have to choose that change. We have to choose to step up, to take the next step, to know that when we get the keys to the car and we're going to get in and we're going to drive that car, that, you know, we got to follow some ethical guidelines and rules to survive and be in service to all life. We have to take our technology in hand with responsibility. We have to think about the well-being of the 7 generations to come. We have to acknowledge that there are principles by which we can live that enable us to be more fulfilled as beings and greater in our service to all life and to the world. And if we can ground ourselves and establish these principles and choose leveraging these principles first and foremost, then we will break through and we will take the steps needed. We will become an interstellar civilization. We will become part of this galactic community, really, truly having a reunion with our family. And that's where things get really, really fun. So the steps that we're in right now is a lot about, are you going to stand for someone else taking away your right to this or that? Your right to work. Why? Because they expect you to do something, inject some drugs in your arm. Or, you know, expect that you're going to go along with a specific story and that you're not going to be able to do this or do that or be this or be that unless you follow and give away your right to choose what happens with your own body, with your own mind. And that test is calling upon all of us to go, wait a second. Like, am I going to just go along with that? Or am I going to choose and recognize that I have, by natural and common law, the right to my own choice, establishing the reality that I'm in my own jurisdiction and that I must acknowledge that participating in the statutory jurisdiction of legal systems in this country, the United States, or wherever you are around the world, is a matter of a choice. that you are choosing to participate in different legal jurisdictions, and that you can also choose not to participate in those legal jurisdictions when you want. Because you have to remember that all the legal jurisdictions created on this planet, from the constitutions and the founding documents that made every country, were written by people just like you and me. They made a choice and a decision to be in service in a particular way and to create a framework for people to make an agreement and work together. So one of the things that I'm doing to facilitate that is I built a presentation on trusts and how to set up a private irrevocable express trust. I see you, Joan. Were you coming in to ask me a question, or?
Keep going. You're doing great. You're doing great. I'm glad that you're giving some solutions now.
Yeah.
And I'm also curious, like how the extraterrestrial perception of, say, what might be going down here on our planet, but in general terms, because we never want to get banned from our channel, if you know what I mean. Okay.
Sure. Yes, of course.
Great. This is fantastic.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've been doing over the last 6 months is I've been deep diving into a gentleman named Carl Weiss's work. Carl Weiss was a legal investigator, lawyer in the 70s, who made it his life work and dedication to pierce companies, pierce trusts, find out the legal weaknesses in a lot of the different, trust structures, church structures, company structures that exist out there. And what Carl Weiss found was that there was one particular form of trust that was absolutely unbreakable. He could never get into it, no matter what he did. And it took him years of collecting historical legal books, deep diving, in order to find out why that was and what it was about this particular kind of trust that was so impenetrable. And what it really comes down to is that within the United States Constitution and within many constitutions and declarations of independence, et cetera, from other countries around the world, there is an establishment within the document in the Constitution. It's Article 1, Section 10, Part 1, that specifically lays out that Congress shall have, and the states basically, shall have no power over the right of an individual to create a private contract. Now, the interesting thing about a private contract is it's a contract between people. It's where we make an agreement, me and you. And the founding fathers were smart enough to know they don't want the government messing with their own private business with each other, right? They're creating a government. So yeah, they need a back door to make sure everybody always has the opportunity to create a private agreement with one another, right? So the state and Congress cannot intervene with private contracts. Now that's a really, really big deal, because the right kind of private contract is one that doesn't ask for permission from a state or a country or a government. In other words, you don't file with the government asking to give you a tax ID number for a corporation. That is basically requesting a privilege in exchange for the cost of then taxation on that corporation, following specific statutory jurisdiction rules involved with requesting that benefit, requesting that privilege from the government. It's like when you ask for something and you say, hey, will you please give me this? There's always an exchange, and it says, okay, great. Well, then you have to do this for us. That's how it works, right? And so the private irrevocable express trust is a formula of creating a trust where you do it yourself. You create your own trust by yourself, with your neighbor, with your family members, and you do it as a private contract. You get it notarized, and there is no filing with a state. But there's an approach to this that requires that who you set the trust up with is not someone that is in your family, that you use someone who is an adverse party as the grantor of the trust to you, the trustee. And I don't want to go into all the details around this, but I'm formulating a video and a presentation that I'm going to share openly, publicly. It'll be on my YouTube. It'll be on my website. There'll be a new section there that's basically all about the core framework of this type of trust law and how to apply it, And what I'm going to include with it as well is a series of documents that will basically give you everything you need to set up this kind of trust. And the reason why it's so critical right now is because one of the things you can do with this kind of trust is you can place your body in the trust. As a trustee, the trust is designed to protect you and your property, and for you to facilitate the protection of that for your descendants and whoever you choose for as long as you want. And so the fundamental piece about that is that you can literally say your clothing, your car, your house, your everything is taken care of and is owned by the trust. And this is a critical piece, because whatever is controlled and owned by the trust exists within the boundaries and the protections of a private contract, which means it's placed outside of the jurisdiction of the statutory law. In other words, any judge you ever face in any kind of situation will have to throw out the case because it's outside of their jurisdiction to face it. Now, this particular formula, go ahead, John.
That's huge. Okay, that's huge, Adam. I mean, so I have friends who've been forming a private membership club and teaching doctors and, you know, lawyers, people who now no longer have jobs, teaching them how to, is this kind of also go along with that, like, ability to be sovereign?
Yeah, it does. But the sovereign movement itself has tons of pitfalls and problems.
Right.
The general path to sovereignty is extraordinarily difficult. The kinds of things you have to do in order to accomplish it. And I've done a lot of research in that space. I've met people deep in that space. I know people who literally went through 26-stage process of getting their entire actual code number back from their birth and from the backs of each of their social security cards. You have to get 10 social security cards, and then the numbers on all of them are different. When you have all those numbers together, you then like have access to the prime account created in your name and all of that kind of stuff. And it is full of dangers and pitfalls and problems, and it is very difficult to come out of that and actually still live and be a part of society in the way that it stands.
But this trust, you're saying, then, is inviolable, and it's a private, irrevocable trust.
Yes.
And how can people find out about that? I'm sure you're going to have a huge amount of interest in that.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I'm going to be giving away some free materials on that, including documents and my own like video presentation, as well as tool sets and documents. And also there's a group that I found that's actually teaching this exact trust formula. They deep dove into Carl Weiss's work. They created a whole academy around it. And this group in particular, I'm happy to share with you guys. The website is Private Wealth Academy, and they have a particular course called the Bulletproof Trust course. And that course, it's complex. I think there's simpler ways to sort of break it all down, which is why I'm going to give away some free materials on this. But the Bulletproof Trust course at Private Wealth Academy is absolutely fantastic, absolutely worth taking, gives you all the templates, legal documents, and things like that you guys need to be able to go into this and explore it for yourself. It's a little expensive, so I'm trying to give away some stuff that will make it really, really accessible for anybody to do this. And I also want people to understand the sort of layering intersections that you can create in these sovereignty boundaries between setting up and managing and controlling your own trust that is private entity that's protected, that can have a public entity like a company that you have what's called a UCC lien on, meaning that any money held in that public company belongs to the trust and is thus non-taxable. So if it's, basically operating in a way that protects yourself financially, that's one method of doing it. There's a lot of other things that this kind of trust can do. And you guys should know that this formula and the fundamentals of this type of trust were originally set up by the founding fathers. Like these guys, Alexander Hamilton was one of the first guys, and he literally set up these trusts as a format for the companies during that time as they were setting up the company. right? Or setting up the country. And so you have these very, very, very deep roots in this country, and they go back even before this country in terms of the legal precedents for this. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of Supreme Court cases backing every part of the law of this structure, which I have not been able to find for a lot of the sort of private member groups and church-oriented things. There's some tricky edges around some of those types of organizations, though I do encourage them as additional layers of protection. And the Rockefellers and some of the wealthiest families in this world took over basically this same formula and established the largest trust webs in the world. Like the Rockefeller family has this massive trust web. All of their companies are protected. Their entire structure is protected and designed around this same back door that goes back, all the way to the roots of this country. And so this is very, very well established law. It's extremely well grounded. And it's a very effective method to go about setting up a structure around yourself that's compatible to the sort of legal environment and systems and governing structures that we have set up around us, but is established through that fundamental right of common law, natural law, and sovereignty. So I know that I think I have maybe about 10 more minutes or so, but I'd like to really just to go from there to really exploring and talking about what this kind of looks like as we work together and we build and establish this stronger sort of defense mechanism for us as a people, and then go forth to actually establish ourselves as part of this galactic community. Joan, I saw you pop in again. Did you have a question or anything? Okay.
You're doing great. I love what you're presenting now, where we're going forward. This is very fascinating. You're teaching us how to take responsibility on a galactic level.
Yes.
So, appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you. So here's the thing, right? We are all sovereign living individuals. We must learn how to stand for, protect, and define that sovereignty. And as a global community, we need to start actually establishing how we operate with each other at a collective level, and what are the collective agreements that we make together in order to establish the sort of principles and rules that will let us really live on this planet in a way that's in alignment and in service to all life and the harmony of all life. So there's a logical progression to this, and the nature of this transformation that we're going through in order to do it. The fascinating thing about the transformation itself is that a lot of it does not come from logical progression, does not come from logical steps that we take forward. The real change, the real transmutation inside of us, the sense of liberation, the sense that, like, my God, I don't need to be afraid. Wow, I don't need to be afraid. Like, is something that doesn't just happen from studying science and looking at logic and looking at what other people have figured out and proven and decided upon and come to conclusions around. It comes through the space of our direct soul experience. The soul within us, the being that we are, realizes that, wow, we ate dirt as a kid. We stuck anything in our mouth and up our nose. And did we get sick sometimes? Yeah, we did. But did we get better? Yes, we did. And so we know we can trust that our bodies are built to interact with the energies and the things and all the stuff and all the viruses and all the bacterias and all that stuff that's outside of us. We're actually designed to interact with it and interface with it. And at a deeper level, we have one of the most complex, beautiful, harmonic systems as bodies of anything out there, besides maybe other extraterrestrial beings that are also built in this kind of biological format. We are designed as harmonic capacitors to be able to adapt to, interact with, and harmonize with a vast array of frequencies across all kinds of octaves. Now, I'm not just talking like woo-woo, fifth dimension, whatever stuff to you. I'm talking about specifically the actual vibrational electromagnetic field that's all around us, and even more importantly, the quantum field, the quantum vacuum, the vibrational field of space-time itself. We are designed as antenna to feel and interact with it. We're also designed to harmonize with it. We're designed to adapt to it. We are made to flux and adapt and be able to be living in all kinds of conditions. And once we start to actually grasp the power of the body to adapt to a vast array of circumstances and situations, then suddenly we start reclaiming that inner power, that rooted groundedness. Our root chakra gets really strong. We start actually tuning into the fact that we are made of fire, air, earth, and water, and we are spirit, that we are actually composed of the universe. And once you recognize that, you start to really question the story that there are things that are artificial, right? Because you start to realize that, well, you created things, and does that make it artificial, or is it real? Like, what's natural and what is artificial? Is artificial just a frequency framework we haven't yet come to understand? Like, and if we and the universe are embedded with a feedback mechanism that enables us to interact and relate with all kinds of information through space-time all around us, inside and outside of our bodies, and that we can entangle with space-time and literally share simultaneity, harmonic coherence, vibrational shared, feeling something else somewhere else at this moment, a mom feeling their child skinning their knee on the playground, you feeling a tingle on the back of your neck from somebody looking at you from across the room, you thinking of somebody and they call you on the phone. If we have that connection to all things, then perhaps intelligence itself, consciousness itself, is primary to space-time, is embedded in the structure of space-time. And so I have to ask then, what is artificial intelligence? Is there such a thing? If the universe itself is conscious, then we develop computers that are made of the universe, and they develop processes that have a particular sort of way of learning and figuring things out. Is that artificial, or is it just surfacing a part of the consciousness that's embedded already within the fabric of space? And then the real question is, what spirits are incarnating within that framework of that consciousness? And that goes to the next level. That goes to the planes. That goes to understanding dimensionality of consciousness. And that goes to acknowledging that everything is a container capable of hosting consciousness, and how we treat anything is also how it's going to treat us. And that mirror, that feedback loop, is a beautiful realization to have, especially when we're getting in touch with things like viruses. There's a lesson in a virus. There is a wisdom in a virus. There is consciousness in it. I don't care whether it's artificial or natural or whatever, it's teaching something, right? There's a teaching in it. And if we can pay attention to the consciousness and the intelligence within all the things, then suddenly, what power does it have over us? We are actually part of it. We get it. We understand it. I understand that I am coronavirus. I am. Okay, cool, good. Well, now that I know I am, I can start to actually understand what it has to teach me. I have to understand what gift it has to give me. I can begin to see through and glean the higher patterns that are unfolding around me. And this is the same steps, the same kinds of transitions that are required for us to become a galactic civilization and a galactic culture. Because we start thinking about the other stars, we start looking at starships in the sky, and we stop thinking about it as, oh my God, did you see that shooting star take a 90-degree turn? Whoa, wasn't that amazing? Is it going to happen again? Like, what's next? Show me the next phenomena. We stop having the phenomenology, the shock and the awe and the, whoa, is the crop circle made by alien? is there, like, or did something natural happen that like wove the wheat together like this, and like formed this perfect geometric pattern, while the farmer actually saw lights come down from the sky, at the night, and boom, suddenly the thing is there, we're still like, but could it be aliens? I don't know. We're so obsessed with the question when in reality, we're already in relationship. We're already in a relationship, and we're just learning how to take the next step of that relationship and start to actually treat our Star Nation friends, as family, as beings that are helpfully offering us guidance to take the next stage so that we can become stewards of our world, because they believe there's a wealth of consciousness and abundance that humanity has cultivated through our own journeys on our planet to bring our own magic and our love out there to other worlds. And when we start to accept that it's not that different, they're not that different. They went through evolutions just like us. They're in physical bodies just like us in most cases. There are planets, there are species, they evolve, etc. And it's like we can get a little bit lost sometimes when we abstract things so far out that we think that, somehow nobody can see them, and they're like, ninth dimensional Arcturian ships that I'm taking photos of when I'm taking a picture of a street lamp, and then suddenly I'm like thinking that lens flares are starships, and because I'm like confused about my transmission and where I'm receiving it from, and I'm just crossing all the threads. When you unwind all those threads and you really simplify things, you just think about that consciousness has a way about it. It moves, it embodies. And yes, there are spirits. Yes, there are beings that are non-physical. And when you develop the discernment and you sort of pick apart the threads that get like really, really convoluted, you start to begin to see that it's very easy and clear to see and discern one way or another. Is this a spirit being? Is this a conscious physical being on another planet? Is this my grandma that I'm talking to who passed away? Is this a angelic being who doesn't even incarnate into planetary forms? And a lot of those answers can come from asking the right questions. So with that said, I'd love to receive any questions from you guys. There is a Q&A box if you're here in the Zoom. You can click that button, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have in my last few minutes here. And I will just go ahead. Hi, Jen.
Well, I want you to tell us how everyone can find you and what you're up to, your recent project, how we can engage with you. Don't forget to tell us all that.
Sure.
And I want you to know they think you're like a galactic attorney. Okay.
Thanks. Yeah. No, well, I mean, I've had to really stretch and grow in the space of understanding law and legalities a lot, through building my business over the last 20 years of doing different corporations. And to be honest, like, I kind of hated that space. I hated law. I hated studying taxes. I hated studying company, law and these kinds of things. But in order to master our interface with our existing society and infrastructure, you have to develop some capacity of understanding in those areas. And it's really, it's only really been more recently that I've been able to start finding resources that I can deeply trust and work with in those areas. I have a full-time legal team who's amazing, and I have been doing the right kind of research to actually get, strongly anchored, grounded knowledge. And the real strong anchored stuff is not abstract. It actually has cases that back it up and things like that. And that's the way that I've worked in the extraterrestrial and the galactic and the technological space for so long. I'm just bringing it into the legal understanding as well, because it's been frustrating to me to see how poorly a lot of the sovereignty structures and movements have been able to actually protect people in a lot of cases. and how poorly they work internationally, et cetera. And I've also been frustrated in the extraterrestrial and the galactic space around a lot of the sort of channeled information and information that gets spread around really easily and becomes kind of part and parcel of the conversations within that community, which just doesn't have very clear grounding, very clear discernment, very clear alignments of truth with direct experience. And I generally say, like, if you can't have both a direct experience of it and validate it with other people and come together to explore the kind of foundation and the truth of it, then, you know, it's kind of hard to hang on to as a fact, as something that we can actually go with in how we operate out there in the world. So looks like we got one question from Annie Stern. She says, if we are currently paying property taxes and have an active business license, et cetera, once we make our bodies, business, and properties in the express trust, do all of those previous contracts become irrelevant, or do we have to close all accounts first? You don't need to close accounts. The way that it operates is that once you set up this kind of private irrevocable express trust, what you do is you can literally sign property over as a trustee into that trust. And what you're doing is basically relinquishing personal ownership of that property, and you're letting it be owned by the trust, which you control in its entirety as a trustee. I think it was Henry Ford, and it's been repeated several, actually John Rockefeller, I think, is the one who said it, but he says, own nothing and control everything. And that's actually what he was pointing to, is that within this kind of framework, you actually don't have any property. So there is nothing that belongs to you. So there's nothing that's causing a taxable event, and there's no benefits you're taking from the government with yourself. So there's literally no exchange that you're having. And the trust, however, is owning and controlling all that property within a private contract that is outside of state jurisdiction.
Well, Adam, our time is actually up, so I want to make sure everyone knows where you want them to go to find you.
Sure.
And this whole thing with the trust, you know, it's interesting. You're speaking about us being sovereign, independent, fully responsible beings as our next step into the galactic world. So
Yes.
I get that. It's taking full responsibility for ourselves. So how can everyone find you?
It's pretty easy. I mean, you can just Google Adam Apollo and you'll find all kinds of stuff. My website is adamapollo.com. I try to keep it updated here and there with videos, interviews, talks. There's a ton of media on there if you're just interested in my work. And also it links into some of my academies. I teach unified physics at the Resonance Academy with Nassim Haramein, which I built back in 2013. For Nassim and for the Resonance Science Foundation. The new version is not the original version that I built, but I'm still a faculty member and part of that academy. I also have the Guardian Alliance. If you're into Jedi training, you can just go to guardian.is or guardianalliance.academy, and it's easy to find and jump into some really amazing courses there. We just released a course called Dance Jedi, and this gentleman, Adrian Lobo, he's absolute expert dancer, you know, just unbelievable, award-winning dancer. And he's teaching how to use your body to move elements and circulate your chi and work the field. So those are a few things that I'm up to. And I'm also building a new framework for a distributed social web called Core Network. And that's at core.network. You can sign up there for updates to find out what we're doing, but we've got some really exciting stuff coming down the pipe around the NFT space. And our first wave will be a series of galactic NFTs that are going to be super awesome, encoded with light geometry. And so if you want to find out about that, you can get on my personal list or jump on the Core Network list.
Wow.
Right.
Wow, Adam, fantastic. It's just an honor to kind of meet you, hear you, see you face to face, and hear your philosophy here. You did
Thank
a
you,
great
John.
job of combining, I think, your core philosophy with what's going on now, with giving people a lot of hope and optimism for the future, for sure.
Mhm. Yeah,
Thanks.
and I want to talk to you at some point, Adam, about that conversation about the ET community and how we can really ground it in a bigger way. I think that's an important conversation. So
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Yeah, we should totally do that. And you know, I'm just loving seeing the progress with Exo Metaverse. I think Zanka and team is doing a great job with that.
yes.
And I'm looking forward to participating more with them as well in that front.
We're all coming, this is coming together. Portal to Ascension and lots of these other groups are bringing us all together so we can become more of a force for change in the world and everyone here online. So
Yeah,
keep up the good work, Adam. You have a key spot in this evolution.
thanks so much, Alan. So good to see you, buddy.
Thank
And
you.
I just wanted to say, out of the ballpark home run. Thank you.
Thank you so
We
much,
needed-
Michelle.
I needed to hear
Honored.
that today. I'm glad I stuck around. Now I'm going to run, but thank you. You all are so fabulous.
Yay. So good to see you. And thanks, Neil, for having me again, buddy.
Yeah, sure, man.
I see the request for some of my links in the chat, so I'll type some in there and jump off video and let you guys carry on. Rock out this epic conference. Enjoy.
Thank
you,
you,
brother.
Adam.
Thank you. Aloha.